Hello, everybody. It is Thursday in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My name is Adam Bittner, assistant sports editor for multimedia at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Back for our weekly Paul Zeise chat here on the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel. Paul, I know it's a big day of radio marathoning for you. How are you?
That's good. Let's see. I'm like 3 hours into 26. So ask me in about 20 hours how I'm doing. I'm sure my answer will be a little bit different. But I am at the volunteer fire department here in Green Tree. And, of course, as you know, for the fan, we're raising lots of money for volunteer fire department. So it's a good cause, and we will get it done.
Yeah, so good to check in with you during all of that. Glad we could make a little bit of time. We're going to talk about the Steelers' offense and defense. Who's under the most pressure this season with expectations? Maybe who are some of the players under the most pressure? Maybe we'll talk a little bit about Brandon Ayuk, some of the trade rumors that are still swirling around this team. Then we'll get into the Pirates. Another big win over the Dodgers on Wednesday night. Are they a serious playoff contender? They start today one game out of the playoff race. So we're going to get into all of that. Before we do, just want to thank our primary sponsor for this episode of the podcast, Pella Windows and Doors. There's no better place to get new windows and doors installed in your home than Pella, who can help you save on energy costs year-round. Schedule a free in-home consultation with your local Pella Windows and Doors to find the right product for your home and budget. Give them a call at 866-593-1560 to discuss your project further. That's 866-593-1560 to get started planning on your new windows and doors installation with Pella Windows and Doors of Pittsburgh. Paul, I'm just going to get into the big question for the video. Is there more pressure on the Steelers' offense or defense this season? Considering the offense has been remade, they've got Arthur Smith in here. They've got a new guy at quarterback in Russell Wilson, at least for now. And then, on the defensive side of the ball, you got a ton of money. I think, with the addition of Cam Sutton, I kind of look at this unit on paper and say, man, this should be one of the best Steelers defenses that they've had since the Super Bowl years. Who do you think more pressure is on right now at this stage?
I think it's different kinds of pressure for both the offense and the defense, basically. I mean, I think the offense, they have a lot to prove. They remade it. They went out and remade the whole thing. You got a new offensive coordinator, so you basically blew up the offense. And, of course, last year we talked about how the offensive scheme was the problem. Well, guess what? Now you got a new scheme. There's no more excuses there. The quarterback is new. There's a couple of new pieces on the offensive line, but there's pressure on them to get better than they were last year. But to me, the pressure is on the defensive side of the ball because of what you just pointed out. All of those guys are making lots of money, right? There's not. I mean, now you add Patrick Queen. He's making a pretty decent chunk of change. You add him to Alex Highsmith to T.J. Watt, to Cam Heyward, to Minkah Fitzpatrick. At the end of the day, they're spending a lot of money on that side of the ball. So they better be good. Not just good, they better be the kind of defense that wins games. And then as the offense gets better and comes along and they sort of figure out the new system and the new quarterback and all the new pieces that are, being put in there, you hope that at the end of the season, by mid-season, they're starting to be the reason that the Steelers win games, and they're able to win, games the way they want to play on offense, which, as you know, is a little different than probably what the rest of the league is going to do. So, to me, the offense probably has a learning curve. The defense better be good from day one, from the first snap of the first game. They better be good. And that's what I'm going to tell you, I think, is what, really sets it apart in my mind. In terms of who has more pressure, the defense that's where all the superstars are. That's where all the money is. And so if you're going to tell me that they come out of the gate and it takes them 4 or 5 weeks for them to really figure it out and settle in, that's not acceptable. They've got to be good from day one.
Yeah, I think with the offense, Paul, I think it's a lot of pressure to meet a low bar. Right? Like if they score 21 points a game and they, Russell Wilson's throwing a couple touchdowns every week, you get one maybe from the running backs, you're going to say, all right, well, they met our expectations. So it's like, I think because of how bad things were under Matt Canada, a little bit of improvement is going to go a long way in people's eyes.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, the bar is really low for sure.
But if they don't meet it, people are going to be furious.
Well, if they don't meet it, that's going to be it's almost impossible for them to not be better than they were last year, isn't it? I mean, to not be better than they were last year, especially the first 13 weeks before Mason Rudolph took over. I mean, to not be better than that, I mean, how bad would you have to be to not at least be better than that? So I think the offense has a lot of pressure, you're right, to improve. I don't know that they've got to be even all that good to be better than they were last year. So again, I feel like the defense has got to be good from day one. And if they're not good from day one, then there's a big problem, because that's where all of your money is.
So, I mean, in that vein, Paul, who are the individual players under the most pressure? Is it those superstars to go out and make the plays that win games? Is it guys like – I'll tell you who I'm looking at. I think Broderick Jones is under a lot of pressure to, start to be that guy. I think he was solid in his rookie season, but, they drafted him to be, I think a star. And I think you're going to want to see that, especially given, the importance of the offensive line in this offense. You got two rookies possibly starting in Troy Fautanu and Zach Frazier. There's been a lot of talk about Broderick Jones kind of stepping up and being leader. I think there's pressure on him to prove that this season. And I also look at Joey Porter Jr. and say a lot of how we view this defense is through the lens of him being really good at corner. Those are probably the two names I'm looking at most. Who are you looking at?
Well, Joey Porter Jr. obviously is going to have a lot of pressure. I mean, first of all, he put a lot of pressure on himself by declaring himself the best corner in football. Okay, you're the best corner in football. Go play like it. And also they need him to be that guy. That's the other part of that whole discussion. They need him to be that guy. That's number one. Number two, and I think this is the most important thing really here, is that Cam Heyward has kind of put a little target on his back, right? Because he wants more money and a new deal or whatever. So, he's 35 or 36 or whatever it is, coming off an injury. You know what? There's a lot of pressure on him, because if he's not good, I don't know that they have another answer at that position. Offensively, I mean, Broderick Jones is a good one. I would say, honestly, if you think about it, whoever is going to be the center is got a lot of pressure on them, because that was a position that was a disaster last year. So whoever is going to do that better be really good. But the obvious answer for all of this stuff is Russell Wilson. I mean, let's face it. Nobody has more pressure on them than Russell Wilson. He has to be good, and he has to have a chance to be good. And if he's not, the whole season kind of falls apart. I get it. They've got Justin Fields as insurance, but again, I have seen no evidence that Justin Fields is a guy to take them anywhere to the next level. So if Russell Wilson isn't good, I'm just going to basically write off the season and say, unless their defense is so elite that they can win games, like some of those Ravens teams and even a couple of the Steelers teams, I just think that Russell Wilson is the key to everything that happens this year.
How good does Russell Wilson have to be to shake off? Because, I think I'm probably in a similar place to you with Justin Fields, but there's a large segment of this fan base, Paul, that really wants to see Justin Fields. How good does Russell Wilson have to be to shake off, the weekly calls for Justin Fields to get a shot? I hear all the time about 26 touchdowns against 9 interceptions and how that's going to be much better than what the Steelers have had at QB the last couple of years. But if that's the way if he plays here the way he played in Denver last season, and that's the quarterback you're getting, at his kind of advanced age, is he going to get hounded at a certain point? Because I think the expectations are a little bit higher than that for people.
Well, I mean, I think it's going to depend on how the Steelers are doing, isn't it? I mean, if he's moving the football and not turning it over, and they're scoring a couple of touchdowns and winning games, I think it'll be fine. If they're losing games, he could throw for 5,000 yards and 55 touchdowns, and people are going to want Justin Fields no matter what. It's almost he's in a no-win situation from the standpoint of he is the one guy that will be judged by wins and losses more than any other player on the team. And the thing about it is, it doesn't even matter how those wins and losses are achieved. If they lose, people are going to point to him and say he's the reason. He could throw for 4 touchdowns. He could throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. If they lose, as you said, there's a segment of the fan base that has deluded themselves into believing that Justin Fields is not the guy that we've seen in the last 3 years in Chicago, who's not very good.
Yeah. So I think that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Paul, you mentioned the formula for winning games, and what is that going to look like? I'm going to reframe that question a little bit and say, what is the formula for this team to beat good teams? When people complain about the schedule because you've got the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Chiefs to go against, the Ravens obviously in the division, the Bengals in the division, the Browns, depending upon how seriously you take them in the division. What's it look like, week in, week out for them to be beating these teams? Is it kind of a score 21, 24 points and expect the defense to hold other teams below that? Is it just containing a guy like Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson, below what their usual production is and hoping that the offense can meet that bar? How do you see the formula being the blueprint for taking on those teams that you and I have sat here how many times and said beating those teams is how you're going to decide whether the season was a success or not?
Well, they're gonna have to average like 22 points a game, 21, 22 points a game. I would say the formula, if you ask me how they're going to beat Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes, I would say the formula is they have 35, 37 minutes of possession time, right? They run the ball. They get a bunch of first downs on the ground. They punch it in. They can't settle for field goals. They get 24 points, and then their defense is who we think they are, and that's going to be the formula, right? And really with the defense, next level for them is turning the turnovers and high impact plays, sacks, tackles for losses, those kind of things. And so I think the formula is very simple. They possess the ball and move it on their terms. They finish at least a few drives with touchdowns, and their defense plays the way the highest paid defense or whatever it is, second highest paid or whatever it is, defense in the league is supposed to play.
Paul, I wanted to also ask you about, there's some valuations out there on what a Brandon Ayuk contract could look like given the money Justin Jefferson got this week, the money some of the other receivers have gotten this offseason. $30 million is a number I've seen per season. Are you trading for him if that's what it costs to keep him? Because or are you getting out of the realm of you're trading for a quote unquote number 2, and that's a number 1 in my opinion, Paul. Can they get what they need and what you and I talk about every week for less than what it seems it's going to take to get Brandon Ayuk and keep him here?
Well, I think the interesting thing is Justin Jefferson signed that deal this week. Or maybe was it last week, maybe late last week. But either way, when he signed that deal, CeeDee Lamb, Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, just about every receiver's agent probably their face lit up with joy. So I say this, and I mean this, you could trade for Brandon Ayuk because you have no money in your quarterback, no real money in either of your tackle spots, no money in receiver. I mean, who's your highest paid player on offense? Honestly. I mean, technically Russell Wilson, but in terms of what the Steelers are paying, who's your highest paid player? You got Broderick Jones, the rookie, probably one of your guards, right? I would think. Probably I'd probably say James Daniels, probably. I mean, without looking at it. I mean, you're not paying anything for any of your guys. Najee's on a rookie contract. Jaylen Warren's an undrafted free agent, basically making league minimum. Your quarterback, you're paying $1 million to, or whatever it is, $1.2 million to. I mean, so if you wanted to sign him, my point is you could, because you're not paying any money to anybody else. The problem you have then is, I think it would be next year you're going to have to pay George Pickens, right? if Russell Wilson's any good, you're going to have to pay him. So, some of these contracts are coming up where you're going to actually have to start paying money. Broderick Jones is basically 1 year away as well, or 2 years away, but 1 year away from being on the doorstep and if he has a big year and proves that he's one of the best tackles in the NFL, I mean, how much money do tackles make?
They make a lot of money.
Exactly. So they're going to have to pay him. Period.
Yeah,
that's the thing. So they're going to have to pay these guys in the next year or two. So right now you could pay Brandon Ayuk, but do you want $30 million tied up in a receiver 2 years from now if you've got to make some big decisions to some other guys?
Well, and I think if he's really good, I think if he's Justin Jefferson level, then sure. I don't know that we've seen that from this guy. So the $30 million valuation to me it sounds like a little rich for the Steelers' blood, and that's why I'd start looking elsewhere in the trade market. Courtland Sutton's a name that's come up. I think that's more the range that the Steelers need to be shopping in at this stage. Paul, we're going to get into some Pirates talk here. Been an interesting week so far, and it's only Thursday. Before we do, just want to thank Pitt Johnstown, another one of our sponsors. It's a Pitt quality education with up-close and personal learning. Top-ranked Northeast Public College by U.S. News and World Report. Generous scholarships and financial aid are available, located on 655 picturesque acres with easy access to the city's town for shopping and dining. It's a vibrant campus life with an active D2 athlete community. Check out Pitt Johnstown today. Paul, I mentioned at the top of the show, the Pirates are 1 game out of a wild card spot after winning these 2 games against the Dodgers so far this week. The Padres hold it, the third wild card spot. They're 32-33 this morning. Do you think the bar will remain that low all season for that last playoff spot? And if so, how reasonable is it to expect the Pirates to compete seriously, with the guys, with the pitchers that they have all pitching well? I kind of look at it and say, I don't think this is a 90-win team. And if it takes 90 wins to get into the playoffs, I don't think the Pirates are going to be the team that gets there. But if it takes like 500-ish, or maybe a little bit over that, then I think you start to look at this team and say it shouldn't be that far out, right?
Well, if they're going to get this kind of pitching, they're going to be in it all year. I mean, I really think it's going to be like 84, 85 wins. That's it. That's what it's going to take to get the wild card. Maybe 86 at the most. To me, with the pitching the Pirates have, I'm not sure why we shouldn't expect that they're going to do whatever they need to do to get some guys in that lineup to get better, so they're not wasting a season of this pitching. When you look at what Bailey Falter's done, I mean, really, Martin Perez has been the weak link, so to speak. And I don't think he's been all that bad. I mean, Falter has been unbelievable. Keller, it started off a little rocky, but he's been really, really good the last 5 or 6 starts. Obviously, the 2 guys at the top. If you can send guys like that out to the mound every week, I mean, shouldn't we expect them to be able to win games? So I feel like, Nick Gonzales has been a really good addition to their lineup. Obviously, he's helped. They need Brian Hayes and O'Neal Cruz to start hitting a little bit and Brian Reynolds to start hitting a little bit. But if they do, and then, of course, if Hank Davis figures out, if he figures out whatever he needs to figure out and becomes the guy they think he is, the lineup should be just good enough to give them a chance to win, knowing that their pitching staff is doing what it's doing. And I think with Holderman and, Chapman is what he is, but I think with Holderman and what's the kid's name? Mikolas? Is that his name? And Bednar and Stratton, they've got some guys down there to get the job done, to close games out. So my thing is, if you tell me they're going to get this kind of pitching the entire season, they should be in the mix for 84, 85, 86 wins. And if they are, that's probably going to be enough to get them into the wild card.
Yeah, and then I think it gets real interesting. I think this team is at this point better suited to win in the playoffs than it is kind of, the long grind of the regular season. And if you can get there, I think anything could happen. Because you could just have Keller, Skenes, Jared Jones go lights out 1, 2, 3, and have command of a lot of playoff series. It's just whether the lineup can perform enough to get there. Paul, I also wanted to, you set up my next question as well. How much are you buying on Nick Gonzales? I think he's at a 855 OPS this morning as we're recording this. If he keeps that up, he'll be the Pirates' best hitter for at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Do you think he's that guy? Do you think we're going to see some regression here? Because we've seen a lot of Pirates in the last few years of this rebuild go on great 6-week tears and then just kind of fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, I think the guy's hit at every level. That's the difference between him. You know what I mean? He's hit at every level he's been at, and he's got a really good swing, and he's got a really good feel for putting the bat on the ball. Even his outs are usually pretty good. I was listening to Neil Walker talk about him at the one game the other day, and I think that Neil Walker was explaining what he did to change his swing and how he's got now a more compact swing that's going to get through the zone and find the ball. I know that I am generally very cynical about such things, but I actually think this guy's pretty good.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, and you mentioned Jack Suwinski and Henry Davis too. I think
Suwinski's a quad A player. I think he is what he is. He's maybe a little better than a AAA guy, maybe a decent fourth outfielder with a little bit of power from the left side. That's what he is. Henry Davis is a mystery to me. But I watched Nick Gonzales hit, and I'm convinced he's a pretty good hitter.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think I'll believe it when I see it. And if we're still talking about him this way in July and August, then I think he's proven it. I've seen too many people come up and do this, Paul, to kind of quite be a believer yet. And especially because I don't think there was a ton of expectations heaped on him, right? I think a lot of people kind of left Nick Gonzales as, kind of left him for dead in terms of the pecking order in the Pirates organization. So I think I need to see him prove it for longer, but no question, I think as this lineup has gotten better from those early season doldrums, he's been a big part of it. Paul, I want to get you out of here on this. Do we need a week before the Stanley Cup and NBA Finals start? Is it driving you crazy that we're sitting here? I sat down to watch the Pirates game last night, and I'm like, man, I'd like to have something on the second screen, and it just feels like they went dark. It's like they're taking a week off, like between the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't understand why they're doing it. I mean, the NBA Finals should have started Sunday. I mean, we should have been. This should be Game 2 tonight, or Game 2 should have been last night. And I was joking the other day on the air. It's been so long, I kind of forget who's actually in the NBA Finals. Obviously, I know it's Dallas and Boston, but it feels like it's detached. And any momentum the NHL might have had is now dead, because I don't even know. I think it's Saturday. I don't think most people know when the games are going to be for the Stanley Cup playoffs. I get it. You're trying to create a window for TV, but you had a lot of momentum. You had people in a rhythm of watching your games every night or every other night. And now I think people have kind of forgotten about it. Now, the NBA will benefit from the fact that they've got the Celtics in it. So there's a big name, big market team, that's a brand name. But if you're the NHL, how in the world are you going to get people interested in watching Edmonton, Florida, after taking 8 days off or 9 days off or whatever it is?
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough to pull the casual viewer, but I do think it's a very interesting series just in terms of, with Edmonton and can they finally get the monkey off their back? And then Florida, has really had a heck of a 2-year run here, Paul. And I think they're a great team with some interesting players. I'm looking forward to it, but that's because I watch a lot of hockey.
Well, I'm going to watch it too. I mean, I think it's going to be great. But I think Florida's better. I think Florida's going to come at them in waves, and they're deeper and they're more relentless. And it's going to be interesting to see if Edmonton can sort of alter their style a little bit to have a chance to play against Florida the way Florida plays. You know what I mean? So that should be a great series. But I'm picking Florida to win in like 6 games. I think they're better. And I think they have a better goalie. as for the NBA series, it's an interesting discussion. Would you rather have the duo from the Celtics or the duo from the Mavericks? Who would you rather have?
I think, I think probably on paper, I'd say the Celtics. Those guys have been consistent all year.
So you would take Tatum and Brown over Doncic and Kyrie Irving?
Yeah, I think they've just been more consistent. And to what? They've been the best team in the NBA all season. I'm not inclined to pick against them quite yet. As much as as much as I'd like to see Luka Doncic kind of go nuts and take over a series, I think that the baseline for those Celtics guys is just a little bit higher.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is I might take the duo from the Mavericks, but I'd take the other 7 guys in the rotation from the Celtics. In other words, I like the Mavericks duo probably a little bit better, but I think the Celtics are, 1 through 8 much better, than the Mavericks. I think the Mavericks, they probably bottom out at about 4. I like the Celtics team, so I like Boston to win. It won't shock me if it's like a quick one, like 5 games.
Gotcha. Any final thoughts on the week, Paul? Cameron Sutton coming back to the Steelers, I think it's really the big headline of the week. Any thoughts on any of that?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like, we've been talking about receivers for as long as we've been talking about them, right? And they keep signing guys like Kez Watkins and Van Jefferson and, the dude they signed from the Falcons, right? That's Cam Sutton signing to me. They just got a guy to fill the slot role, but he's just kind of a guy. I don't know that he makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Thank you, Paul, for joining me this week. I'll let you get back to your radio-thoning. Check Paul out on the fan. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Help us out. We'd love to have you along for the ride as we get into Steelers training camp later in the summer here. We'll be back next week here, and then Christopher Carter will be back on the North Shore Drive, so stay tuned.
All right, we'll see you.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.